you know, this technological sound of a beach on my iPad, and I'm at the beach. Yeah, okay. But oh, anyway, these magazines they had these kids dressed up as little adults, and like we'll treat your child as adult. And kids are not little adults. They don't think, and some adults aren't adults. They're children too. Perhaps they haven't got to the formal logical conceptualization. I'll let you read some of that stuff, but if you end up being a child or a pediatrician or parent, let the child set the tone, which pay attention. Yeah. Disease and etiology appear consequential or of negligible concern to children. Yeah, you think? Okay. Then they move to older adults. Helen Mirren. Women can only be sexy if they are young. Oh no, that's not true. Where was that question? Oh, the what do you think? On page 148. Do you think people typically become less attractive as they age? No. I I I think I become more attractive every single second. That's how I tell my wife. You're more beautiful today than you've been since yesterday. Um, do you think I think that's a funny question. To say, yeah, old people are ugly and they smell bad. Oh, okay. So, sort of the big thing here, accommodation theory. Um, we do this a lot for. I mean, I do it to my mom sometimes. It's just over accommodation is bad. But basically, accommodation theory is people tend to mirror each other's communication styles to display liking and respect. Convergence occurs when partners use similar gestures, tone of voice, vocabulary, and so on. On the other hand, divergence involves acting differently from the other person, as in whispering when the other shouts, blah, 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 blah. There's also, I think this is accommodation theory. I can't remember. Maybe not. Oh, what I'm thinking of in my head is like, oftentimes we, no, it's a different theory. Never mind. Okay, so the big problem here is over accommodation, an exaggerated response to a perceived need. Especially if the over accommodation is pervasive, older individuals may begin to believe that they are indeed of diminished capacity. So if you talk down, hey, old person, I'm going to speak loudly and slowly so your oldness can understand. And they do believe that they are indeed of diminished capacity and they may behave in line with that expectations. In short, they start to do being old. It's a performance, and they're unconscious of it. Older adults usually have no control over the cues that suggest to others that they are aging. An older sounding voice is one example. One study, people whose voices sounded old perceived by others to be older than their contemporaries and even perceive themselves to be older. An old voice is quivery and breathy, with prolonged vowels and sounds. I'm old. Yeah, whatever. So there's, with ageism and over accommodation, there are great implications within the healthcare setting. Older adults usually treated by caregivers who are significantly younger than they are, and therefore, might do some stuff. They may lump older adults into simplistic categories such as frail, mild-mannered grandparents, or worse, cantankerous grumps. Get the hell off my lawn! Second, people may not try hard to maintain or restore older people's health. You're going to kick the bucket soon anyway. Third, studies support that treating people as if they are helpless encourages them to believe it. Fourth, caregivers tend to underestimate older adults' desire for information. You're old. Why do you care? Okay. Talk about communication patterns, all this stuff. The Silver Surfers. In my CMC class, there's this idea called the Silver Surfers, and these are older folks who are on the web. And most research says that folks that are a little bit older, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, the number one thing they look for online is health information. So equality theory of aging, which posits that older adults benefit as both teachers and learners when they use, contribute to, influence, and express themselves in electronic environments. The summary. So what's the big picture here? I like the first paragraph here of the summary. When we consider diversity in healthcare, intersectionality theory reminds us that a person's social position reflects a dynamic, multidimensional interface between factors of both a micro and macro level. The most powerful implication of this for health communication is that since some people experience life at the intersection of many factors that put them at a disadvantage, it is more effective for policymakers and health professionals to become acquainted with people than to make assumptions based on nebulous or isolated categories. We need to understand people, who they are, everything like that. We need to, if it depends, well, socioeconomically, issues of health literacy, gender, sexuality, issues of disability, language barrier. I mean, we need to understand everything and understand the people if we are going to be treating them well. So lots of stuff out there. We can't assume that folks are the same. It just don't happen that way. At the same time, we cannot just lump folks into categories. You here, you here, you here. You're in this bucket, you're in this bucket, you're in this bucket, you're in this bucket. It doesn't work that way. Things are complicated. Okay, I'll be back with more stuff later on. This is the earth. Because we're all here, but we're all different. Do I have anything else here? No. Fade to black. The sunset. It's probably going to rain in about 5 minutes.